Hey, what's up, guys? Vigilant Texan here. Tonight's video, Tares Amongst the Wheat, Part 1, The Garden. What I'd like to do is take a look back at the Garden of Eden story and just do some digging. Just see if we might have missed something. So let's start in Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 2. Oh, first of all, I'd like to thank John Pounders for this t-shirt over at Now You See TV, good folks. And I'd like to thank Zen Garcia for all his research, and Gary Wayne as well. So let's get started. Bereshit chapter 2. And Yahuwah Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Alright? Now, that Hebrew word there for eat is akal. Akal. It is a primitive root, and it means to eat. Literally. The figurative meaning of it is to burn up, or to consume, or to devour. And that word devour can have a sexual connotation to it. And Yahuwah Elohim said, It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. And out of the ground Yahuwah Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to the cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helpmeet for him. And I just have to chuckle at this scene. I mean, obviously they were looking for a helpmeet for him. And Yah decides to parade every animal in the animal kingdom in front of him. You know, like, what do you think about this one, Adam? And you're like, I don't know, the neck is awfully long on that one. Let's call that one giraffe. Give that one to somebody else. Right? Like, I don't know, this one's a bit hairy. Maybe let's call that one a bear and keep that one up in the mountains, away from me, you know. Just a funny scene. Definitely not what we're here to focus on tonight, though. But there was not a helpmeet found for him, and Yahuwah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And while he slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which Yahuwah Elohim had taken from the man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, Now this bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, but were not ashamed. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahuwah Elohim hath made. Now that word serpent there is nakash, which comes from the root word nakash, meaning snake. Named a snake from its hiss, or a serpent. Okay? And that word subtle there is arun, meaning cunning, but usually in a bad sense, also meaning crafty, prudent, or subtle. It comes from the root word aram, which means properly to bear, to make bare, but used only in the derivative sense, though the idea perhaps of smoothness, to be cunning, usually in a bad sense, or to take crafty counsel. So what we have here is Eve taking crafty counsel from the serpent. Now, I know what you might be thinking, like, come on, if you're saying this is some sort of sexual thing, like, why would Eve be attracted to the serpent, you know? But what you have to remember is this serpent, you know, this is the fallen angel. This is used to be the anointed covering cherub angel, you know, and the war in heaven just took place, and so pretty sure he didn't look like a snake, you know. In Hebrews chapter 13 verse 2 it says, "Do not forget to receive strangers, for by doing so some have unwittingly entertained angels." You know, and also there in Mark it says, "And turning around and seeing his taught ones, he rebuked Kepha," or Peter, saying, "Get behind me, Satan, for your thoughts are not those of Elohim, but those of men." So, right there, we have Satan, the same guy here in the garden, actually possessing or using Simon Peter. And Messiah looks straight at Peter and rebukes Satan. So, you know, and then of course you have stories like the three angels that come before Sodom and Gomorrah and warn Lot to get out. Nobody could tell they were angels. You got the three guys that come to Abraham, who he makes a meal for, who eat in his tent. He couldn't tell they were angels. So, you know, shouldn't be hard for Satan to take a form that could be attractive to the woman. And he said unto the woman, "Yea, hath Elohim said, ye shall not eat of every tree in the garden?" And that Hebrew word for a woman there is Isha, which is interesting because it's not the same word used for female in chapter 1, and it's not always the only word used for woman. It's the feminine version of Ish, which we're going to get to later on that Ish word, which is like an irregular contracted form of Enosh, which means a man. So it's a strange form of a man in the feminine form, Isha, a woman, but the second definition of it is an adulteress. So the very next meaning other than Ish or Isha, if you use that to mean woman, would be to mean an adulterous woman. Very interesting when you look at the Hebrew. And the adulteress said unto the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest ye die." Okay? Now, what does Eve do right here? Alright? She barely spends a little bit of time with this serpent, you know, just takes a little bit of crafty counsel, and now all of a sudden, here she is adding to the word of Elohim. The commandment didn't say you don't have to touch it. It just said you can eat of every tree of the garden except the one in the midst of the garden. You can't eat of it or you'll die. It didn't say you couldn't touch it. It said you couldn't eat it. But here she is saying, "You shall not eat it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die." Okay? Now the word for fruit there in Hebrew is peri, peri, which comes from para, and peri just means fruit, literally, or figuratively could be the reward or the bough. Now, the root word there that it comes from, para, is a primitive root, which means to bear fruit, or to bring forth fruit, or to cause to make fruit, to grow or to increase. So, this fruit could also make you bear fruit, apparently. And then the Hebrew word for touch there is nagah, which is very interesting. Now, nagah, being a primitive root, means to touch, literally, but then figuratively or euphemistically, it means to lie with a woman. So she says, you can't eat it and you can't sleep with it or lay down with it or have... I mean, you're like, you know, the word could definitely mean a sexual connotation again, you know. And here we see a picture of Adam and Eve with the fig trees covering, of course, their genitals. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for Elohim doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as mighty ones, knowing good and evil. Which, by the way, is the same lie that the Luciferians and the Satan worshippers still peddle today. Is that book really true? Come on, it's got to be make-believe, made-up stories. Look, all you got to do is enlighten yourself, become enlightened, learn some mysteries, and next thing you know, you'll be in control, and you'll know what to do, and you will be the master of your universe, and you will know what's right and what's wrong, and then you will be in charge, right? It's the same lie they sell today. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise. And she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also to her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves coverings for their faces, so as to cover their terrible, nasty mouths that ate the fruit. Whoops, I'm sorry, no, it doesn't say that. It says they made aprons, obviously, to cover their private parts. And they heard the voice of Yahuwah Elohim walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah Elohim amongst the trees of the garden. And Yahuwah Elohim called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, The woman thou gave me. Yeah, she gave me of the tree, and then I ate. And Yahuwah Elohim said unto the woman, What is this thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent, he beguiled me, and I did eat. And of course that word beguiled there in the Hebrew, Rasha, means to lead astray, or mentally to delude, or morally to seduce, to beguile, deceive greatly, utterly, to wholly and morally seduce. So what did this serpent actually do? What really happened here? Let's keep going. And Yahuwah Elohim said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy heel, and thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And interestingly enough, that word for seed there is actually zera, not zara, okay? There's one is the root word zara, which means to sow, to plant, to bear, okay? And then zera actually means the seed or the fruit of the sowing. You know, the child of the, knowing, the fruit at sowing time, okay? So he says, between thy fruit, between thy zera, not thy zara, between thy seed, thy fruit, and her seed. So the serpent has a seed here. We get from the Masoretic canon, King James Version. All I did was insert the proper restored names. Let's keep going. This story's getting good now. And unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow in thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Well, that's kind of harsh. You mean they used to be equal, and now... In Adam, he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return into the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living, not just the mother of his children. Unto Adam also and to his wife did Yahuwah Elohim make coats of skin and clothe them. And Yahuwah Elohim said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and live forever. Therefore Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Now, what I'd like to do is spend some time bringing in some other witnesses and some other texts and insights. The first one here is from the book of the Cave of Treasures during the rule of Seth. Now this book here is decent. It's okay. It's got some good insight. I'm not sure how inspired it is because it talks about the fallen angels in a way that doesn't really make sense to me. But it's a very ancient writing. And this is talking about during the rule of Seth. And it says, And when Seth had lived 913 years, he became sick unto death. And Enosh his son, and Canaan, and Mahalalel, and Yared, and Enoch, and their wives and their sons gathered together and came unto him, and they were blessed by him. And he prayed over them, and commanded them, and made them to take an oath, and said unto them, I will make you take an oath, and to swear by the holy blood of Abel, that none of you will go down from this holy mountain to the children of Cain, the murderer. For you know well the enmity that which hath existed between us and Cain from the day whereof he slew Abel. And this is key. We were taught some really whack stuff growing up. We were taught that the snake probably had legs before then. It was more like a reptile. But then because he tricked Eve into biting this apple, he was made to crawl on his belly. And that's the enmity between snakes and women. This is why women are scared of snakes or whatever. I mean, this is the type of hooey I was taught. Alright? I mean, no. The enmity is between Cain and Cain's children. The line of Cain, okay? And between Abel and Adam and Adam's children, okay? That's the enmity. The enmity is between the two seeds, the two different lines of people. Alright? As we can see right here, they seem to understand that the enmity was between Cain and his kids. You know? And I mean, I think it has absolutely nothing to do with the snakes we see on the ground nowadays. They're just animals. They were probably like that before. This next little excerpt here is from Ephraim, who was a 4th century Syrian theologian. And the most revealing quote from his commentary is, It is because of the glory which they were clothed that they were not ashamed. When it was taken away from them, after they had violated the commandment, they were indeed ashamed because they were now naked. Now, this is another misconception that I'd like to address. I'm beginning to believe from all my research and reading ancient writings that they were clothed in light. They were actually clothed. They had their transformed beings. Okay, they before they sinned, I don't think they were in their flesh. And I think that it could be when he says he made them coats of skin, that he wasn't slicing open animals and putting animal skins on them, that he was actually putting their worldly bodies on them, because formerly they were just clothed in light. That's why it said they didn't know they were naked. And so that's another misconception, which you'll see if you read some of the ancient writings. And this is just to kind of back that point up. This is an excerpt from the book of Adam and Eve, chapter 4, entitled Adam Mourns Over the Changed Condition, and Adam and Eve Enter the Cave of Treasures. This is talking about the difference between their bodies before and after they sin. But Adam and Eve cried for having come out of the garden, their first home. And indeed, when Adam looked at his flesh that was altered, he cried bitterly, he and Eve, over what they had done. And they walked and went gently down into the cave of treasures. And as they came to it, Adam cried over himself and said to Eve, "Look at this cave that is to be our prison in this world, and a place of punishment. What is it compared to the garden? What is the narrowness compared to the space of the other? What is this rock by the side of those groves? What is the gloom of this cavern compared with the light of the garden? What is this overhanging ledge of rock to shelter us compared with the mercy of the Lord that overshadowed us? What is the soil of this cave compared with the garden land? This earth strewed with stones, and that planted with delicious fruit trees." You know? And Adam said to Eve, "Look at your eyes and look at mine, which before held angels praising in heaven, and they too without ceasing. But now we do not see as we did. Our eyes have become of flesh. They cannot see like they used to see before." So, just pause for a second here. He said they used to see angels praising without ceasing. But now we do not see as we did. Our eyes have become flesh and they cannot see as they used to see. I believe the distance they could see was greatly reduced, and I believe that they may have even been able to see the spirit realm that we can't see before. So you know how it describes that they were able to see the angels. When you know how we're told we're in Scripture quite a bit that angels are always at work around us and we can't see them. Maybe they could see the spirits, you know, disembodied spirits and things like that. And he goes on, "What is our body today compared to what it was in its former days when we lived in the garden?" And after this, Adam did not want to enter the cave under the overhanging rock, nor would he ever want to enter it. But he bowed to Yah's orders and said to himself, "Unless I enter the cave, I shall be a transgressor." Interesting book. You want to read it? Adam and Eve, I think, is better than the book, The Cave of Treasures. But, you know, you got to take it with a grain of salt. If it was really that inspired, it probably would have stayed in the canon. But very ancient writings of people that may be able to glean some more details of what was going on. Next, I want to look at the book of Jubilees in chapter 4, and now we're going to kind of shift from that sort of focus there with the heavenly bodies and things to why Cain is not ever talked about as one of Adam's sons, and why he's missing from all the lineages in the Scripture. And here we have from Jubilees chapter 4. It says, "And his wife mourned for Abel 4 weeks of years. And in the 4th year of the 5th week, they became joyful." So, what happened in the garden? And then with Cain killing Abel, I mean, a week of years is 7 years. So 4 weeks of years is 28, plus another 4 is 32 years. They mourned over what happened. "And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare him a son, and he called his name Seth. For he said, Yah has raised up a second son unto us on earth, instead of Abel, for Cain slew him." A second son, huh? What about Cain? Was he not the first son? Well, not Adam's first son. And then over in the book of Jude, which I have no idea why the New Testament people had shortened it to Jude. His name was Judah, just like so many other biblical, there's so many Yahudas when you look in the lineage. But yet, it's like James. The guy's name ain't James, it's Yaakov, just like Jacob. Just like, why not just call him Jacob? Anyway, in Jude it says, in chapter 1, verse 14, it says, "And Enoch, the 7th from Adam, also prophesied of these, saying, See, Yahuwah comes with his myriads of set-apart ones." Key there, though, he said he was the 7th from Adam, which, if you look in the genealogies, which we're about to, he ain't the 7th. Let's take a look here. From Luke chapter 3, picking up at verse 37, it says, "Of Methuselah, of Enoch, of Jared, of Mahalalel, of Canaan, of Enosh, of Seth, of Adam, of Elohim." So if we go backwards counting from Adam, because we want to know how many Enoch is from Adam. So from Adam, then we have Seth 1, Enosh 2, Canaan 3, Mahalalel 4, Jared 5, Enoch 6. Not 7. Okay, well maybe that's just a weirdo thing. Let's go look in Genesis. Don't we have the full lineage there? Yes, we do. I'm not going to read all this because it's very lengthy how it talks about each one and what happens and all this stuff. So I've highlighted here the names. And so from Adam, then you have Seth 1, Enosh 2, Canaan 3, Mahalalel 4, Jared 5, and he brought forth Enoch 6. Once again, not the 7th. So surely Jude is not just like miscounting, right? Surely he double checked afterwards to make sure he didn't mistype anything, right? Well, actually, the only way Enoch can be 7th is if you include Abel. Aha! If you count Abel, now all of a sudden Enoch is the 7th from Adam. Ding, ding, ding. So Jude wasn't crazy. But if Jude included Abel, then why not include Cain as well? Unless Cain was not Adam's son. Let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Corinthian Bet. Chapter 11, starting at verse 2, and it says, "For I am jealous for you with the jealousy according to Elohim. For I gave you in marriage to one husband, to present you as an innocent maiden, or a chaste virgin." In some translations, actually more translations say chaste virgin than innocent maiden. They both mean the same thing, a virgin. "To Messiah. But I am afraid lest as the serpent deceived Eve by his trickery, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Messiah." Did y'all realize what Paul just said? He says he wanted to present them as a virgin, an innocent maiden to Messiah, but lest as the serpent deceived Eve, therefore making her not a virgin, he's afraid the same thing could happen to us because of how simple Messiah's message is. Wow, and that word for deceived in the Greek is expateo, which means to wholly seduce, sexually, beguile, deceive. So Eve wasn't a virgin. We're going to come back to that later as well. If indeed she did get pregnant with this serpent seed. 1 John. What is this? Yochanan Aleph, 1 John chapter 3, starting at verse 11. It says, "Because this is the message that you heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of the wicked one and killed his brother." And why did he kill him? Because his works were wicked, but those of his brother were righteous. "Do not marvel, my brothers, if the world hates you. We know that we have passed out of death into life, because we love the brothers. The one not loving his brother stays in death. Everyone hating his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has everlasting life staying in him." So he says that Cain, who was of the wicked one, meaning from the wicked one, meaning a progeny of the wicked one. And interestingly enough, the name Cain is interesting as well. It means Cain, his name, because of course that's the first mention, so he gets the first definition also. But that word Cain also means a lance or a spear. So could that have been what he used to kill Abel, was a spear? A Cain? And then it comes from the primitive root kun, which means to strike a musical note, to lament, or a mourning woman. So it could be that she was mourning and sad because of Cain, and she called him Cain, and then they ended up naming the spear after him. I don't know. Just interesting stuff there going on with the Hebrew in his name. So, you might be thinking, this is kind of a crazy story here, sir. You're trying to tell me that Cain was the son of Satan? And there was a lineage that comes from serpents and fallen angels, and yeah, could be. Let's see what our Messiah has to say about it. There's a parable he had in Matthew 13 here. It says, "Another parable he put forth unto them, saying, The Malkuth of the Shemayim, or the kingdom of heaven, is likened to a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares amongst the wheat, and went his way. But when the crop was sprung up, and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in thy field? From whence then has it tares? And he said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather my wheat into my barn. But, luckily enough, he gave explanation for it, like he usually does. This is aggravating me, the way this is, making it, bunching up my words here. Oh well, we'll just power through it here. So then, having sent the crowds away, Yeshua went into the house, and his taught ones came to him, saying, Explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. And he answered them, and he said, He who is sowing the good seed is the son of Adam, or Adam. And the field is the world. And the good seed, these are the children of the kingdom. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. Well, there you go. I mean, he just comes right out and tells you. And the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. And as the tare then is gathered and burned into the fire, so shall it be at the end of this age. The Son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness, and shall throw them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And then, if you're wondering, he said double there. He didn't say serpent. Revelations 12:9. And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old, meaning old in the first story in the Bible, called the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. What does this serpent man look like? I don't know. Alright, so let's move on to the Targumim. If you've never heard of a Targumim or a Targum, remember, Targum just means translation in Hebrew, which is exactly what the Greek Septuagint and the King James English renditions are. They're translations of the original Hebrew manuscript. Okay? Those two are translations of the Holy Scriptures, exactly like the Targumim, except that the Aramaic Targum were the ones used by the Hebrew people themselves when returning from the Babylonian exile imposed on them by Nebuchadnezzar following their 70 years of living abroad. So, just to give some clarity there on these Targums. So what happened is they get exiled to Babylon. They take, I guess, their copies of the Torah with them, and obviously all the priests and the priesthood get taken. They're there at the temple. So they go, and then when they're released and they come back, they find that all the people living there, a bunch of them only speak Aramaic. They don't even speak Hebrew. So they quickly had to translate the Hebrew manuscript into Aramaic so that they could give copies to the people and teach the people out of the Torah in Aramaic. And there's about four or five different Targums. There's the Palestinian Targum, Targum of Onkelos, Jerusalem Targum, something like the Jonathan, whatever. We're just going to use Targum for now because they all come from the same time period. They're actually all over 1,000 years older than what you find in the King James Masoretic copy, because those were the Masoretic text that was being kept by the sages and the Pharisees. And as we're going to see, there's some stuff that was left out that was in the Targums that they just kind of decided to leave out of the King James and the Septuagint and the copy of the Torah that we have now. So let's do a little comparison here. It's Genesis 3:15 in the KJV says, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." Now in the Targum it says, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between the seed of thy son and the seed of her sons. And it shall be, when the sons of the woman keep the commandments of the law, they will be prepared to smite thee upon thy head. But when they forsake the commandments of the law, thou will be ready to wound them in their heel." I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why couldn't they have just left it like that? Especially with the part about keeping the commandments and not forsaking the law. I mean, yes, I prefer that rendition better. Brings clarity. Now, Genesis 4:1 KJV, and by the way, this is the one verse that people who try to debunk or go against the serpent seed, this is the one verse they cling to as their saving verse. And see right here, it says, "And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord." Praise Jesus. Right? I mean, and that's all it says. And in the Targum it says, "And Adam knew Hava his wife, who had desired the angel, and she conceived and bare Cain. And she said, I have acquired a man, the angel of the Lord. And she added to bear from her husband Adam his twin, even Abel." And some of you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, man. Cain and Abel were twins. They can't have different dads. Are you crazy? Well, if you've never heard of it, there's a term called superfecundation. And it is the fertilization of two or more ova from the same cycle by sperm from separate acts of sexual intercourse. Sorry to get graphic here, guys, as if this wasn't a graphic enough topic. The term superfecundation is derived from fecund, which means ability to produce offspring. Then there is heteropaternal superfecundation, and that occurs when two different males father fraternal twins. That is from Wikipedia. And it happens today even. Just do a little Google search on that. You'll see it happens still today. "And Adam knew his wife, who conceived by the angel Samael, and was pregnant, and bare Cain, whose resemblance was like the upper creatures, and not like the lower. And she said, I've gotten a man, the angel of the Lord." That's from Legends of the Jews, Johann A. Eisenmenger, 1700. Cain's descent from Satan, who is the angel of Samael, was revealed in his seraphic appearance at his birth. The exclamation was wrung from Eve, "I've gotten a man through an angel of the Lord." That's from Traditions of the Jews, Louis Ginsburg. It seems obvious to me that the phrase, "who had desired the angel," which has been left out of the later modern translations, is what led to Eve's impregnation with Cain. For truly it was her desiring the angel which tempted her to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Likewise, it was also her desiring the angel which led to her proclamation that I have gotten a man from an angel of the Lord. For that is exactly what Samael is, an angel of the Lord. Now afterwards she bore Cain, their son, and Cain cultivated the land, and thereupon he knew his wife again. Becoming pregnant, she bore Abel, and Abel was a herdsman of the sheep. That's from the Hypostasis of the Archons, which is a really old book too. Unto the woman he said, multiplying, I will multiply thy affliction by the blood of thy virginity, and by thy conception in sorrow shalt thou bear children, and to thy husband shall be thy desire, and he will have rule over thee unto righteousness or unto sin. So in the Targum Uziel, it says, I will multiply thy affliction because you lost your virginity, basically, in modern English. Excuse me. Again, in Genesis 5 later, when we're given the lineage here, and in Genesis it says, this is the book of generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him, male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam. In the day when they were created, and Adam lived 130 years, and begat a son in his own image and likeness after his image, in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Seth. In the days of Adam, after he begotten Seth, were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. King James Version. This is the book of the genealogy of man. In the day that the Lord created man, in the likeness of the Lord he made him. Male and female he created them, and blessed them in the name of his word. And he called their name man in the day they were created. And Adam lived 130 years, and begat Seth, who had the likeness of his image and of his similitude. But before had Hava born Cain, who was not like unto him, and Abel was killed by his hand, and Cain was cast out. Neither is his seed genealized in the book of genealogy of Adam. But afterwards there was born one like him, and he called his name Seth. In the days of Adam begot Seth for 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. Targum. And he drove him out of the garden because of his apostasy through the sin of the serpent and the plotting of the devil. And that sorrowful moment Cain was born. And when Adam saw that the face of Cain was ill-tempered or sullen, and his appearance evil, he was sad. And then Abel was born. And when Adam saw that his appearance was good, and his face good-tempered, he said, this is my son, the heir of my kingdom. The book of Kebra-Nagast, chapter 3. Now, here I want to make a little point that we can actually glean something just from the Masoretic King James Version that most people, I haven't seen anyone mention yet either. It says in 4:1, that verse 4:1 that everyone throws out, it says, and Adam knew Hava his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gained a man, comma, Yahuwah. And that word for man there is Ish. Remember, I told you we get to these. Now, Ish is contracted form of Enosh, perhaps rather from an unused root meaning to be extent. A man as an individual or man person, often used as adjunct to a more definite term. Also, another, any certain champion consent, each and every fellow good man. So, it's different than just a regular man. It is a strange type of peculiar type of man. So she, even though she says, I've gained a man, Yahuwah, and everyone says, well, there you go, see, gained a man from Yah, can't be from Satan. Well, the term they're used there for man, though, is Ish, it's Ish. Why would they use Ish? Because look, as you can see, something very profound happened later on. And later on in the same chapter, verse 25, it says, and Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. And Seth is the Hebrew word 8352 in the Strongs. It is a replacement, i.e. a substitute. So we've gotten a substitute for Abel, right? And here we go. I love it when the Hebrew gives the definition of the name right after the name. For Elohim has appointed me another seed instead of Abel, or in substitution for him, because Cain had killed him. Now listen to this. And Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. And then it was they began to praise the name of Yahuwah. And why? Because what does Enosh mean? Enosh just means a mortal man, a normal man, a more dignified Adam, a man in general, a chap. So they're like, thankfully, they might have been a little worried, like, okay, we got Seth, but all those children over there happening in Cain Town, they're all pretty funky looking. You know, what if Seth can't have normal kids? But then finally Seth has a son and they name him Mortal Normal Man. Enosh. And they all praise, hey, finally, yay, a normal guy. You know? And then, you know, the big point that started to dawn on me, you know, earlier, because we were talking about how Eve was not a chaste virgin, you know, not a maiden. And does this actually make the third time where the husband in the scripture has to take a bride who's not a virgin, right? Because and you know, just think about this. Think about the scene. Just think about the scene. If Adam shows up and all of a sudden here's Eve and she's naked and she's in a body you haven't seen, and he's like, Eve, you know, what happened? It's like, man, I was here and I'm just working in this garden, and then I heard this noise and I went over by the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and there was this guy there and he was talking to me and he's telling me how great this fruit is, and then I bit the fruit, and then I don't know what happened. I fell down here on the ground and everything was weird, and then next thing you know he's helping me and it seemed like it was nice, and then I don't know what's going on, Adam, and Adam's thinking, did you eat of that fruit? We weren't supposed to eat of that. And she's like, yeah, you know, I ate it, and look what happened. All of a sudden I was transformed into this, and Adam's thinking, this is the only woman in the whole world. My only other choices are all those animals that Yah paraded in front of me to see if I liked any of them. And boy, she looks mighty nice in that fleshly body, you know. Maybe he just went ahead and decided, you know what, this is the woman Yah gave me. I'm going to go ahead and take her. I'm going to make good. And then he eats the fruit, and then next thing you know, they get mixed up into sexual sin, and the deed happens, and she's pregnant with twins. But if you think about it, isn't this exactly what happened at the golden calf? I mean, here we are. He brings them out of the wilderness, he gets them out of the world, brings them to Mount Sinai. He makes this huge marriage proposal, and they say, yes, I do. Kind of like when Adam says, she's bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Yeah, I'll take her, you know. And then what happens? Yah brings Moses back up to get the instructions on how to make the place where he's going to dwell with his people, and they cheat on him with the golden calf, so instead he has to make the tent of appointment way outside and only meet with Moses and Joshua, who weren't down there with him, right? And then, of course, if you think about it, in the end, you know, we all want to be the bride of the Messiah, but are we virgins, you know? Are we? No, of course we're not. Of course we're not. So, you know, if Adam had to take a wife that wasn't a virgin, that's 3 times in Scripture where that has to happen. And to me, that was what solidified this as being certainly a very plausible thing, that this serpent very well may have truly beguiled Eve, and that would explain, and it actually explains a lot. And so I urge you to stay tuned, because what I'm going to do is part 2 of Tares Amongst the Wheat is going to be called The Fallen, and we're going to talk about how this that happened in the garden enabled what happens later with the fallen angels to work so much more in the enemy's favor. And then part 3, we're going to talk about the chaff, meaning the people who aren't tares and aren't wheat, but still have to be dealt with. And then in the end, I'm going to talk, the last part 4 is going to be the harvest. So I hope y'all enjoyed tonight's video. I hope it, you know, may have enlightened you a little, and you at least enjoyed the story. Please leave comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a great Shabbat this weekend, everyone. See you next time.